Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another game review with Vail. I'm Vail, and it's time to review the Wednesday game. Normally, I would be posting these on Wednesday, except this game was crazy, and it took me several days to figure out even some very rudimentary branching patterns to see how this game could have gone. It was a hard fight. We played this on Wednesday in the morning, myself and Micah, and it was a long game, probably an hour and a half, couple hours, and it was difficult fighting and a lot of hard reading, and just very hard to review. So let's get to it, and I'll show you what it looked like. I was black. It was an even game. I'm sorry. No, I'm usually black. I take it back. I'm white in this because Micah's a little bit weaker than me. But yeah, so check that. I'm white in this one. And here I opened with a 3-4. Um, Not typical when I'm playing white. Typically, I like to play here. But I've been practicing some of my 3-4 Josekis, and so I wanted to give those a shot. So a lot of the Josekis that I've been learning have been coming from a pincer like this, and I was anticipating Micah playing at P4, and that would turn into a standard pattern that looks something like this. Black plays on R3 to settle quickly, and this is one possible variation. That looked okay for me. The cut, or the push and cut at Q4 for white doesn't work, so this is a completely safe variation for black to play, but you got to know it. You got to know how. He did not do that. He played here, and I thought this was a mistake at first. However, reviewing it, it turns out that this is actually a Joseki. You can play this way. This is how the Joseki typically goes. You Hane at the bottom. He creates the tiger's mouth, and that's the typical progression. And honestly, I think that while this would have been a completely different game, I think it would have led to a simpler game, and I probably should have played this way. So one of the lessons learned here is studying my Josekis a little bit better, I suppose. That having been said, I cut off the tiger's mouth possibility. And I didn't want to get boxed in, so I didn't play. My first instinct, of course, is to play at P2, but that could have led to um, pushes and nasty cuts once black plays at Q5. So I wanted to play a little bit more aggressively than that, so I pushed through. And I was okay with this. I actually deliberated on this move quite a bit because I wasn't sure the best way to handle the leftover Aji at R5. I think that there's this move balanced. I was trying to find a balance between mitigating the Aji here and allowing some pressure to be put on any extensions going this way. So this is the compromise that I came up with. This is just basic stuff. I am considering the right side semi-settled at this point. So when black takes the extension at K3, I don't want to allow him to get the enclosure at C6, so I block that. Kind of an odd move on his part. So I immediately double enclose, since K16 is not Sente. Okay, so here, if this is kind of approaching this scenario in reverse order, but if when white has a stone here on C6 like in a normal approach, and then is allowed to jump into the 3-3, When black starts to play the blocking moves that keep the 3/3 stone enclosed, black needs to remember that he can't Hane here because there's too much of a threat because of the stone here at c6. But to make use of that threat, you need to descend once. So after this, Micah was able to read it out, and he blocked here. If he had blocked here, that would have been a terrible mistake. And this cut, you see how he has to play the e2, otherwise that stone dies. But then this works, and there's no way out of this situation. That's just a dead group. So I believe, having read that out, he blocks here, allowing me to lightly connect up with my c6 stone. Enclosure. I decided to try to reduce. I wasn't able to stop the enclosure, the corner enclosure, and the extension here. Because I double approached, I ignored his move here. So he was able to get the enclosure. So this is my attempt at reducing any potential territory that he can get on the upper left corner. I am admittedly making a weak group here, but it is with the intention to destroy any large territory that he could get. This is what I kind of expected him to do once I made this knight's move, and this is kind of what I had read out, this progression here. Has to connect there, otherwise that group dies. This is kind of, this is a variation that I built later, so, this group here is alive now, as far as I can tell. There is a lot of strength here, but I'm considering this strength kind of, it can't get a lot of territory base because it's undercut, right, because of this stone here. And this group is still not alive yet. So I thought that this would, if it was played this way, this would be really beneficial for white. It did not turn out that way because he did not try to cut off that stone. Instead, he approaches, which is honestly probably the better move. I defend high, and he jumps out. Not a sente move, so I go back and fix some issues now that I don't have as much strength or places to run with my white invasion group in the upper left. I decide that I need to spend some time getting some eye shape. This he's spent a lot of moves on the left side of the board, and when I saw this move, I thought, it's not sente, and again, he can't get a lot of territory over there because of my living group in the bottom left. So I was thinking to myself that he was making a kind of a half mistake here. Probably shouldn't Hane here. Typically, you want to just ascend. It leaves open the potential of invasion. So if once this happens, it's not big enough for white to block here. There's bigger moves elsewhere. But then after a larger move is made, black has options to jump in. This, however, destroys any potential that black could do anything in white's corner and leaves a cut here later at 018. Here I'm just trying to build up my moyo on the right side. Pretty happy about this. I've got some eye shape and ends in my sente, so I play another move strengthening my Moyo. And he invades. This is a pretty deep invasion, and I thought to myself, I can kill this. So I cap it. I didn't want to leave a cutting point here because I didn't want him to use the Aji at R5, the R5 stone, to if he took a cutting point, then he could use possibly the cutting stone, the Aji stone there at R5. So I just extend up. I had read out that he couldn't connect to this stone easily because of this descent, which you'll see in a moment. So here, if I had played here, then black would be able to connect. But I had read out that if I go this way, then he can't. Not with any eye space, anyway. Now here I shouldn't have done this. This is what I should have done. I should have just descended because he can't block there. Well, he can, but it'll turn into a kind of a bad fight for him in the bottom. This is what I should have done. So this is looking great for white. Even though black's group is alive, there's still some areas to Hane and poke at this. It's probably going to live, but there's some things I can do to it. But this potential territory here more than makes up for the loss here. And there's still some moves that, because of this descent here, that I could make in the corner. That having been said, I messed that up and didn't descend at T4 like I should have. Instead, I started making some weird moves here, just on the off chance that he would make a mistake, which is it's never a good idea. We should never play that way. So, a little disappointed with my play here on the right side, just in general. But it does end with Sente, and I use that to Hane here. Now, I had initially kicked myself right after I played this move because I had been thinking to myself that I wanted to play here instead. Now, this turns into a very different game. I have played out a possible scenario for this, and it well, you tell me what you think. This is what I think would happen. Black would try to stop my connection. Hane, extend. And this is what I'm seeing. So black gets a large group that's alive and all pretty much connected all the way around here. And white hasn't really made up enough territory. There's a potential that this stone could get reactivated now. Very likely, indeed. But the amount of territory that white's given away to black is too large. So initially I had thought that I had made a mistake by playing this Hane, but now that I look at it, I think that this is probably a better move than this cap. And this just killed me because this is what I was trying to prevent with this move. So when I thought I had made a pretty bad mistake here when he jumped out. So I tried to limit his influence on my Moya. And this is one of those moves. This is a very Micah move, and Micah's going to be watching this and probably reviewing this game himself too. So I'm curious what he says. But we talked about his penchant for these kinds of moves, after the game, and he said that inevitably he tries to find moves that don't fall into the thing that I expect, and he does succeed at that. However, I think frequently what it does is it leaves himself open for weakness. The other side of that, though, this is the lesson I took away from this game. I need to know how to follow up on his mistakes. So if he's going to do something that's unexpected, I need to be absolutely sure that what I did was a forcing move, was a move that needed to be responded to in a particular way. And that's a hard thing to know as a Q player. And so it's just going to take time and more games and situations like this. I appreciate our games together because he does things like that. He challenges me to prove that I made a good move there, or that I know that the move that he should have done was the necessary move. So here I decide to try to prove it to him. Again, instead of just blocking at J6, he descends. He's doing a lot of Atari play here. Kind of it's not always wrong, but when you see this kind of play, typically means that mistakes have been made. You don't want to see Atari. That is a very early Q kind of way of playing. Just Atari everything and hope one of them works. That having been said, even though it looked very Atari style, uh, Black does end up with quite a lot of territory and effectively a safe group down here on the bottom. Very similar to the way that the other one turned out, except that it didn't end with a Sente move here in the center. White still has some potential there, but it is Gote for White. So Black tries to. I think he's trying to make eye shape with his center group and possibly connect to the top. Fixes his cutting point. That's very good. I make one peep, which he again plays abnormally in response to. And then I decide that I need to double Atari down here to do something. This is where it gets really weird. So it turns into a lot of several co threats down here, or co's. This, oh, man, I think I think this is a bad move. Because he plays here, but just creating a hanging connection or a bamboo joint here, man, this changes everything, right? Because I now this group, my corner group is undercut. I need to find ice space, and I need to try to take away some of his territory. Look how much territory he's built up because of this, because of some poor play. Because I didn't get this descent here, he's got so much cash over here compared to what do I have? I've got this. That's pretty much my territory. A little bit here. If he had just played calmly, I thought that it might turn into this kind of game where he Ataris starts this co. Um, I can't let him connect that out. So that's one option. That's really good for Black because Black is totally alive, has killed a string. This group's not alive yet. Another option would be for White to capture here and start this kind of co. And now we have this situation where it's a big running battle, but black is out, has protected his some of his territory here. There's still a lot of potential for mischief over here, and has even killed a bigger group, it appears. Um, Now it's not clear who's going to win. Well, with this, yeah, if if white connects here, it's unclear what's going to happen, but it's not looking good for white. I don't think, because if white connects here, then black can just take that stone, right? So white would need to protect this, but then this dies. So yeah, all in all, I think looking at it again, um, I think this was a big mistake for Micah, and just making a nice shape would have been better. So I cut through. I could have played on the top like this, and that probably would have been better. That's forcing. So then I start to try to put some pressure on black's string. But a simple move like this, and he's connected, right? He just needs to make that one little move, and he's pretty much good to go. Now, I did think that this would have been kind of interesting because, yeah, now now this group is alive. It's connected out, but I've given black a little bit. He's saved this group, and he's got almost all this territory. Again, this is better for black. So, not that I read all that out when we were playing the game, but um, I didn't want him to fix this cut that I thought that he had missed. So I pushed through immediately instead of playing the push on the top. Now he starts to protect all that territory, and honestly, he's got it. Like this is a lot of territory for black. And then I played this move here, which I intended as a ladder breaker, and I'm not sure if Micah saw that it was a ladder breaker. So I think this is a mistake. It allows me to come out. This move is too small because I can totally lose those stones and it's not going to kill anything large. This was a risk because this is another option and probably would have been better. I think this is probably one of my largest variations that I played out. But just black needs to make sure that that group on the side doesn't die, so it needs to get a lot more liberties. But once white's string of stones here is has enough liberties, now I can go ahead and make this throw in, which has to be responded to, but that allows for some really nasty squeeze plays. See, there's an Atari there, so all of these are forcing moves, as far as I can see. And what's black going to do? Black is able to live here. Notice that this here, once black plays this move, I suppose, no, that doesn't work. So yeah, I think that once black plays this move, white needs to play here at f2. Otherwise, well, obviously can't protect against here. If White can no longer kill this group because of the shortage of liberty problem. Because if he plays here, then he gets captured. So after black plays c11, then white needs to descend and make sure that this group on the bottom gets captured and that his whole group stays connected and alive. However, because that capture is necessary, I have to play e1. I play that in Gote, allowing black to make sure that his group is alive. But notice that black's group is alive but completely surrounded. The game looks completely different now because of just pushing along here instead of the Hane that I did. So just pushing along and threatening this group of black stones on the left side allows for this fascinating exchange, really, where white gets everything he wants. So this is how I should have played, but it was just too much for me to read out. Oh, goodness. No, I'm in Atari, aren't I? Where did that happen? Ah, yeah, I missed that. White would need to come back here, which means that black could get out. Still, I think this is better for white. Even though black gets to protect a little bit of territory, this is way better. All of this is not territory either for black. So this is probably how I should have played. That's a big, long variation. And just as a reminder, it all stemmed from me doing this Hane instead of this extension. So this is probably what I should have done. I literally told Micah when I played this move, I was like, this is probably going to lose me the game. Because I wasn't sure about the variations that came from it. Fortunately, he played a bizarre move again, and it allowed me to kind of do the same thing where this series of moves allowed me to push into his territory and reduce him to such a great degree that I think that was, at this point, the game is close. I calculated at this point how much territory we all had, and it was within a couple of points as I counted it. So this is just me now that I have a couple of mistakes on Micah's part down here allowed me to make up some territory. Now I'm just trying to do some sector line stuff and and reduce him so that he doesn't get. If he had played here, game over for me, right? There's no way I can invade that anymore. So I had to play there. He blocks, and then I found this move. And there may be other ways to deal with this. I couldn't find any. Because after this progression, I have eaten those two stones in the top side, and I was feeling like I was ahead at this point, definitely. So, I'm not sure if Micah should have played this M18 move or done something more drastic, like here, maybe to try and kill off a large group of stones to make up for this loss. There's still this undercut here, this monkey jump that can happen. That's what he was worried about. Understandable. I'm not sure what I would have done either. But it allows me to come back and start to find some eye space for my weakest group. And here, I think this probably would have been a better way to settle the group. Can't really play here, right? Because this is an Atari, which leads into an Atari. Now I've got two eyes, and white is completely safe. So maybe something like this, but then that allows for this sequence, and that's alive too. So several ways for white to be alive. I probably found the most inefficient one, but I was trying to find some forcing moves as well. Potentially, white. It's possible that white's not in any danger at all, but I wasn't sure about that, and I don't think Micah was either. So we continued to fight it out. Black needs to kill something now in order to make up for the loss on the top side. And here he found this move because, or he found what I was going to do. I was going to, if he just tried to block me or play anything else, I was going to capture these stones. So seeing that, he stops that from happening. And then we're nearing the end here. Um, I was a little worried about any possible connection with his upper group and the line of stones here in the middle. But I didn't need to be, as it turns out. Looking at the variations again, it looks like even if he does push through, there's a shortage of liberty problem. See how he's in Atari there? He can't play that move. And it turns out that he can't play that move at any time during this sequence. There will always be a shortage of liberties for that group. So after a few more moves here and I block here, he resigns. And yeah, a lot to parse, a lot to kind of figure out. I think my lessons, the things I learned, the lessons I learned from my Go games typically extend back all the way to the beginning of the game, where just some small mistakes. But here was I think probably um, one of the biggest ones. I should have just descended here. That would have completely changed the game. Instead, what I did was I went down a path that I had not read out, and that's something that I shouldn't be doing. You should, don't. It's hard because as a beginner, early queue level stuff, you want to play. You have no choice. You have to play moves that you don't know how they turn out. But at the single digit queue level, I should just play moves that I pretty much know what they're going to do, and not try to get fancy. So this would have made a huge difference. Going back even further, um, this invasion, I think this is potentially the best I could have done. I think this gap here, because it's on the fourth line. I don't think there's a way for me to kill that when he makes that invasion. So good invasion point on good time to jump into my Moyo there on his part. But even then, even after he lives, it wouldn't have been a big deal if I had played this move correctly. I don't think he would have lived small. Going back even further, it's possible that I should have, at this point, played a move maybe here. This puts some pressure on this group and has some nice follow-ups if he decides that he wants to get out. I have some things I can do over here to reduce him and make him small. So potentially this was not my weakest group. This was, and you always want to try to defend your weakest group. When he played this move, this was a big move on his part. Even though I thought it was small, he just had more territory than me at this point because of this potential. I was counting this as territory. I was being very ambitious as to how much territory I had. I don't have this. This isn't territory. This is probably his territory. This is his territory. But when you factor in real territory versus my real territory, Black's really far ahead at this point. There were better moves on the board. I'm not saying this was the correct move, but I didn't play anything that was making enough territory in exchange for his move here. So paying attention to those types of things, I think I need to do that more. Protect the weakest groups, and besides that, Yeah, I don't know if this, I think this is probably wrong, but I don't know any better follow ups here. I don't know, because we were off script already. I don't know what else I could have done. So that's it. So I hope you enjoyed that review. I apologize for it getting out a little bit later. It's been a crazy week, and it took a long time to really sit down and think about this game. It was very complicated for me. This Saturday, I will I will probably not have time to get out. Maybe maybe I can record one tonight, but I'm going to try to do a life and death video. Typically, those are on Saturdays. And then this Sunday, I will be all day at the Seattle Go Center, local Go chapter, um, American Go Association chapter. They've got their largest tournament of the year, the Jin Chen tournament. I've never played in it. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of strong Go players there. And I'll be recording my games and be uploading those and reviewing those in the weeks to come. But hopefully, we'll get back on a normal schedule here with Wednesday game reviews, Saturday Life and Death, and Monday Endgame. So, those are all the things that I think make strong Go players, studying those three methods, those three avenues of Go. And I hope that you are getting some benefit out of these reviews as well. And please feel free to like, subscribe, and tune in next time. Uh, until then, Excelsior.